Okay, today we are making one of the most popular recipes on my website, vegan pound cake, which I usually make with a fresh lemon glaze, but I have to say this pound cake also is wonderful completely on its own or as the base for a strawberry shortcake. First, we're going to start by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius, give or take, which I've already done. Next, we want to prepare our loaf pan. Just take a standard loaf pan, this one is 9 by 5 inches, and we want to grease it. I like to take a neutral flavored oil. I usually do this over the sink just to catch any oil flying. And then I cut a piece of parchment to perfectly lay across the center like this. I believe this one is 9 by 16. I'm actually gonna get out one of Jeff's measuring tapes to be sure. Look at that. This guy doesn't mess around. Okay, so it's actually 8 by 16. Now this to me is the perfect size for the parchment paper. We're just gonna lay it right across the center. And what this does is it creates 2 handles to easily and effortlessly lift your loaf out of the pan once it's done. Okay, next we need 1 cup of non-dairy milk. Almond, cashew, or soy are definitely the best types to use for baking because they don't have any added oils like you'll often see in oat milk, and they're less starchy than oat milk as well. I know it's very popular. I love my oat milk too, but for baking, I would stick to almond, cashew, or soy, unsweetened. Okay, so we have 1 cup. And we need 1 tablespoon of vinegar. You can do apple cider vinegar, you can do white distilled vinegar, and sometimes I'll even use just a plain rice vinegar. All of them will work wonderfully, and what you're doing here is creating a vegan buttermilk, if you will. So give that a little stir. You're gonna notice it's gonna start to curdle, which is normal, it's exactly what you want. Next, we need 1 stick plus 2 tablespoons of vegan butter. Now I should say you can find the full recipe on audreydunham.com. You can see the type of vegan butter that I like best written right there in the recipe because I've tried many. Okay, grab our hand mixer here. We just want to fluff this up for a good 20 or 30 seconds on a medium speed. Okay, now I should have mentioned this butter is softened. That's exactly what you want. You don't want it cold right out of the refrigerator. Now I thought it'd be nice to show you this time how I bake when nobody's looking. So I love using a food scale. To me, this is the most precise way to measure for baking, and actually the cleanup is less because you just use this. So for our sugar, just pour this in here. 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons. But if you want the grams, you can find those on my website on the printable recipe. Okay, that looks about right. Now, believe it or not, this is a food scale with a bowl built in. It's the greatest invention ever. It measures both grams and ounces. I will provide a link to this down below. Seriously, one of the greatest inventions, and I use it all the time. Okay, so we have our sugar. We're gonna add that to our bowl with our butter, straight in, and wonderful, glorious vanilla extract. Let's grab those spoons. Okay. I was about to measure over the bowl again. Mom, my mom is standing right here. Mom, come here. All right, Mom, so you were telling me that in home ec, you were told not to measure over the bowl because in case you overpour, right? So
all the time. So,
so what do? Do you measure over the bowl or no?
No, I don't measure over the bowl. You could read on the recipe because by pouring too much in there. So
I know, that's true. But,
all right, so don't do that.
But I really like vanilla, and I'm totally okay with adding a little extra. Okay, Mom, don't look, don't look. Okay, ready? Okay, we have half. Okay, so far so good. That's a half. Now we just need 2. See how I do here. 1. That was a little iffy. Okay, 2. I think that was all right. Okay, but you heard it from my mom, guys. Don't measure over the bowl. It's probably the best thing. Let's mix this all together now. Next, we're gonna measure our dry ingredients. We have some flour, baking powder, and salt. That's it. Now, the additional great thing about this scale is that if you need to measure your dry separately, like we're doing today, you can use this bowl and not even have to transfer it to another bowl afterwards. Since everything is dry, you can just stir it up in here and use it, and that's it. One less bowl to clean. I love it. This recipe can actually easily be made gluten-free. I give you the very simple instructions on how to do that in the recipe. In fact, I actually like the gluten-free version just as much as the regular version. You can hardly tell a difference, really. It's so good. Adding our baking powder straight to this bowl. Okay, 1 and 2. Finally, a little bit of salt. Now we don't need much, here it is, because the butter is salted. I find that most vegan butters come salted. It's very rare to find unsalted vegan butter. If you do happen to have that though, you just want to add an extra 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the batter and then give it a taste. If you feel like it's lacking a little bit of salt, you can always add an extra pinch or 2. Okay. Just give this a nice stir. If you're noticing a lot of clumps in your flour, then whisking is a good idea here, but I find that you don't really need to do much more than that. Not necessary to sift this flour. It's such a simple recipe. Okay. All right, we have our butter mixture. We have our almond milk that has been combined with vinegar. And we're gonna switch off, adding it to the wets and create a glorious cake batter. So let's start with just a little bit of our vegan buttermilk we created. You don't need to thoroughly mix it, just until mostly combined. Okay. Half of our dries here, our flour mixture. Once again, just mostly combined, not entirely. And the remaining vegan buttermilk there. And the second half of our flour mixture there. Okay. Get this all mixed together. Now I should say you can also use a stand mixer. I prefer the hand mixer just for these small, easy jobs like cake batter. For the bigger jobs like making bread dough, that's when I definitely bust out that stand mixer. For some reason, I don't know, I guess I'm nostalgic that way. This is what I grew up using, so. All right, so this is looking great. I'm just gonna scrape the sides. We don't wanna overmix, otherwise the cake won't turn out light and fluffy. Overmixing can result in tougher cake. We don't want that. You might have 1 or 2 little tiny lumps in there, here or there, especially with the gluten-free version, I do see that. That's okay, they usually bake right out. And that's what our cake batter looks like. Just need our prepared pan. Fold down those sides so they stay out of the way. We're just gonna pour it right in. And then just smooth over the surface. And it will only fill up about half, maybe 2/3 of the pan, but it's gonna puff up quite a bit during baking. Okay. Okay, this is ready to go in the oven. It's gonna be in there for about 50 to 60 minutes. Now, I recommend you checking it though at about the halfway point and giving it a nice little rotation. That way, if your oven tends to bake unevenly, you're taken care of with just that simple little step. All right, well, thankfully we don't need to wait at all because I baked one last night and it is ready to go. Here is the finished pound cake. So pretty. You want it to be nice and golden brown like this, and around the edges especially, because that'll create that nice texture that pound cake is known for. And I like to just take a toothpick and place it right down the center to make sure that it's baked all the way through. It should come out completely batter-free. But even if you just touch it lightly, you want it to be firm. Be careful, because it'll be hot. You want it to be firm and not feel as though it might sink down. That indicates that it needs a couple extra minutes in the oven. All right, so we want a nice, thin, sharp knife to go along the two edges that do not have any parchment paper. Should come out pretty easily because we greased it liberally, right? Just pull it straight out. Magic. Okay. Set that aside. I'm going to add that fresh lemon glaze that I spoke about earlier. It's just our favorite way to enjoy this cake. So let me show you how to make that. Okay. So if this were to have just come out of the oven, we want to let it cool for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then we want to do the steps that I just showed you, where we slide the knives around the edges, lift it out, and let it cool completely on a cooling rack just like this one. And then when it's cool enough to handle from that point, we can remove our parchment. And then for our glaze, of course, for a fresh lemon glaze, we need fresh lemons. So grab one here. This one looks good. Before we take any juice from this lemon, we're going to zest it first. We need zest from half of a medium-sized lemon, just like this one. This will add a nice punch of lemon. There's just something about lemon zest. There's nothing quite like it to get that lemon flavor. You can add lemon juice, but if you want the really nice, I don't want to say powerful, it's just perfect. Just the perfect amount of lemon, you want to add that zest. But I will say, if you're okay with a light lemon flavor, you can leave out the zest entirely and just use a little bit of juice. Okay, that's looking good. If you don't have a microplane like this one, the smallest holes on a box grater will usually do the trick as well. Grab our lemon, cut it in half. Just need about a tablespoon or so. I'm gonna set this down just to make sure that we're really accurate here, because liquids, we have to get them right when it comes to any sort of glaze or frosting. Too much can result in a very loose and thin glaze, and we don't want that. All right, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, not measured over the bowl. Mom, she's still here. She's waiting for this pound cake, and she's helping out today. Mostly helping out. I don't want to make it sound like you're hanging around waiting for cake. But I wouldn't say I blame you, because I would hang around for cake. Okay, we have our lemon zest, lemon juiced. Next we need our powdered sugar. And I find that anytime powdered sugar is used in any type of frosting, especially in a thinner one, like a royal icing or glaze like this, it's a great idea to sift it first to keep any little clumps from getting in there. You want everything to be nice and smooth. Okay, that's looking pretty good. This nice little sift. Okay, there's our beautiful sifted powdered sugar. And our last ingredient, couple more tablespoons of non-dairy milk. I'm gonna start with about 1.5 tablespoons. And I like to use a mixer for this because we have that lemon zest in there. It helps to break up some of the larger pieces of lemon zest and create a nice smooth glaze for the most part. There'll be a little bit of evidence of that bit of zest that we've added, but that's okay. If you do choose to leave out the lemon zest, you can probably just whisk this together and it would come out beautifully. But since we have that zest in there, I'm giving it a nice little mix here. Okay, it's pretty thick, so I'm adding in the extra milk. All right, I'm gonna grab a spatula here, scrape down our sides. It's very pretty. So we have our cake still on the cooling rack. This way the drips will go straight through, so we don't want to plate the pound cake just yet. All right, there's our glorious lemon glaze. Just Right over the top. I like to be very methodical, if you will, careful with how I drizzle this because I like it nice and even. You want to make sure that you don't get one side more than the other. You want to make sure it also drips down all the sides evenly. Now, oftentimes what I will do is let one coating dry and then come back a few minutes later and add a second layer. And that way, more glaze is likely to stick to the pound cake rather than end up underneath on the parchment paper. All right, look at that. So pretty. Now what you would normally want to do is let this dry completely before you serve it. However, I want to show you how I transfer it to a plate. Okay. So you want to get a nice wide spatula and slide it right underneath. All right, so I should say, in addition to a wide spatula, it's always best to have a really thin metal one for this job as well. And there we have it. You really don't need to garnish much. This is just beautiful as is. Mom, you wanna come try it with me? Do you like the crispy end or do you like the soft all the way through?
I like them both.
I know, me too. I'm gonna give you soft all the way through.
Okay.
Just so pretty, so nice. Okay. All right. It's good.
That was so good.
That glaze really adds such a nice freshness, just a burst of flavor. So this recipe has been so popular on my website, and some people have actually said in the comments that they've made this into a layer cake and it's turned out really nicely. So now I'm dying to try that. I haven't tried that myself. So I think I'll be doing that next.
Yeah, I'd love to see if that would work out. That'd be really good.
To find the full recipe, jump on audreydunham.com. Just do a search for pound cake. It'll come right up. Is there anything else we need to say?
Yes. If you haven't subscribed to Audrey's YouTube channel yet, hit the subscribe button.
Or else.
Be sure to like this video and share it with all your friends and family.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We will see you next time. Do you want to take this home?
I'm trying to lose weight.